Welcome, everyone, to the Coin Bureau podcast. My name is Guy, and I am here with my very dear friend, Mad Mike Mooch.
Hey, how are you?
I've got to be honest, I have been better. It has been...
You know, one of those questions when you ask and it's kind of like, it's rhetorical.
Yeah.
You know, we're all feeling it at the moment. And things are not as rosy as maybe we've painted on some of the other podcasts, which always end in upbeat, glowing sort of horizons. But yeah, this week has been interesting.
Cryptogeddon, I think. I think we
Cryptogeddon.
could call it Cryptogeddon.
If you thought Enron was big.
Do you know what? It's interesting you should say that, because this, like, a lot of people have been saying this is crypto's Enron, and like the parallels don't end there, because the guy actually now brought in to clean up FTX, you know, to basically oversee it being wound down, is the same guy who was brought in to do that with Enron. So yeah, there are some uncomfortable parallels. Anyhow, for anyone listening, I don't know. I imagine most people listening to this will kind of have at the very least a vague idea of what has gone down. But
the breaking news is Mt. Gox is over.
Mt. Gox is no longer the biggest catastrophe in all of crypto. Mt. Gox has been booted down the rankings. So to quickly recap, last week, FTX, which was the second biggest crypto exchange in the world, it collapsed. And it is safe to say that not many people saw this coming. And it has hit the crypto industry like a bomb, like an atomic bomb, really. And yeah, there is a lot to unpack. And I should say at this point, Mikey, it goes without saying really, but obviously this is a situation. We're recording this on Tuesday, the 15th of November. This all started happening about a week ago. And as we speak, this is going to be going out a few days later on the Friday. As we speak, obviously, things are happening. So this story will have kind of developed by the time people are listening to it. But
maybe it'll be fixed. You never know.
Wow. That is optimism I didn't know you possessed, sir. Maybe, but I would say the chances of that are so infinitesimal that we may as well park that right now. But okay. Hey, stranger things have happened. And you know what, Mikey? Like this week, some of the things that have happened this last week or so have been so extraordinary that I am literally willing to believe pretty much anything I hear at the moment. My critical thinking has taken such a battering because some of this stuff is like you literally couldn't make it up. So what
this
I
is the
thought
Fire Fest of crypto.
I think that's a good one. Did Fire Festival happen in the Bahamas?
Yes.
Okay, well that's where FTX was based.
On some island that was Pablo Escobar's or wasn't. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, FTX was, what's left of it still is, based in the Bahamas. So there's a definite parallel there. There's several parallels. So anyhow, what I thought I'd do today, I remember messaging you sort of a few days ago and being like, are you are aware of what is happening? And I got a sort of guarded yes in reply. So what I thought this would be a useful episode to do was I would bring you up to speed with what happened and give you a bit of background, give you and the listeners a bit of background into what's been going on, how this was able to happen, and maybe kind of speculate on where exactly we go from here, because this is a real kind of the crypto industry itself, I think it's fair to say, is kind of going through like a massive existential crisis at the moment. And this at the end of a year, which has already been quite apart, without FTX happening, this would still have been one of the worst years for crypto ever.
Yeah.
So it's only getting worse. So it's a difficult time for the industry. So I think it might be, it might be good to kind of look ahead and try and speculate where we might be going and what might happen next, and if there, how we can possibly try and move forward from this, as an industry, as a sector, because we will, and we have to, and we will, but my word,
this is a hard one to swallow.
It really is. It really is, and we'll get into why that is in a moment or so. I also, Mikey, I know you and I have been talking crypto for a while now, and so I wouldn't classify you as a complete outsider to crypto, a complete noob, because obviously you're not. And actually, I mean, you've been buying crypto for longer than I have. But I wouldn't say you quite have the status of an industry insider just because you.
I'm insulted, but also agree. I've had the opportunity when we were at Bitcoin Miami, and when I've been around you and the guys at Coin Bureau. I often think to myself, I've got a really big opportunity to immerse myself amongst some crypto sort of sages, and then I get distracted by anything else and ignore that giant opportunity and carry on with my life willy-nilly. So yeah, I have the opportunity to learn a lot, but I choose not to.
Sure. Okay. And I mean, I guess the crypto industry sort of held out its hand and said, "Come on in, Mikey, come on in," and you sort of ignored it. And I bet you're feeling pretty pleased about that.
Well, if I was paying attention, I would be, but I haven't, so I'm indifferent.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say I'm going to classify you as as an outsider looking in.
I'm a casual. I'm a casual.
Yeah,
crypto fan, I suppose.
A casual observer.
I'm there for the heavyweight battles, and I think one of the heavyweights is down for the count at the moment.
One of the heavyweights is splattered all over the canvas at the moment. Yeah. So as I'm keen, Mikey, sort of after I've kind of talked you through what has happened, and as I say, there is so much more to this story. So anyone listening, a few days from when we record this, there will be other stuff. So we'll keep you up to date on our other channels. But I'd be interested, Mikey, at the end of this, once I've explained it a little bit, to get your thoughts on not only this instant, not only what's happened over the last week or so, but kind of how this makes crypto look, an outsider's view of crypto, because I think one of the hardest things to bear about all this is that it is just the worst advertisement for an industry that I love and care very deeply about, and it just looks so bad at the moment, or that's how I see it. So yeah, just park that for the time being, and then maybe
I just want to say that is the equivalent of someone on the news, there has been some great tragedy or something like that, and they just go to some everyman in the street who has absolutely no idea, has no grounding or perspective on the topic, and they ask him for a soundbite of what has happened, and they're looking for something deep and meaningful, and just what gets regurgitated is just drivel. So okay. I'm honored, but also, if I was a listener, I'd be insulted that you're asking me for my opinion.
And that's all we've got time for this week, folks.
I'm talking my way out of this podcast very quickly. No. I know what you mean.
I tell you what, at the end,
I'm interested in crypto. I skim it. I don't live and breathe it like you guys do. But there have been ripples that were sort of the way I noticed it was the memes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was on LinkedIn actually. And I saw some people posting about the toxic work, sleep at work sort of memes that were happening, and how that sort of and I just saw someone's comments and saying we can all see how that turned out, and it's later come to light that it was in reference to the head of the FTX or whatever, sleeping on a beanbag or something like that.
Yeah,
and that's how I got the news.
through memes. Well, this is the 21st century after all. Yeah. So, I mean, Mikey, you're going to very much be that man in the street asked to share his drivel, share the inside of his brain.
And I'm not going to try and say something too bigoted. Is essentially that's what I'm going to do.
I mean, if you could do your best, that would be great. Yeah. I mean, I understand if you can't. And we'll have a discussion about your contract after that. Okay. So, all right. Well, you mentioned Sam Bankman-Fried, not by name, but the guy you're talking about, was the head of FTX, and I think it's probably good to start with him. Because this is the guy, this is the guy at whom every finger is pointing at the moment, and rightly so. So I think let's start with SBF. So, Sam Bankman-Fried. Okay, now he is, I guess you'd say, a relative newcomer to the crypto industry. He's not a crypto OG in any way, shape, or form. And he kind of first came to prominence kind of around 2019. And I'll give you a bit of background on him. He's the child of Stanford law professors who seem to be very, very well connected with people in Washington, with people in kind of US regulatory circles, if you like. And with people, I think, with the Democratic Party as well, which is something that's it caused incited a lot of attention over the last few days as well. We'll get back to that. Anyhow, he graduated from MIT and he went to work for a kind of traditional finance trading company called Jane Street, and he was working there for a few years, kind of doing kind of regular TradFi trading stuff. And one way or another discovered crypto, and he realized that there was an easy way to make money. Now, this is not the sort of easy way that a lot of people discovered. This was something he basically realized that Bitcoin on exchanges in Japan and I think South Korea as well was actually trading at a lower price than it was on exchanges in the United States. So, or was it the other way around? Yes, no, that's right. Bitcoin was more expensive in Japan than it was in the United States. So he would buy Bitcoin on US exchanges and sell it on Japanese exchanges. This is a classic kind of arbitrage trade, and he would pocket the difference. And he set up a company to do this that he called Alameda Research. Now, one of the interesting things is Alameda Research obviously sounds like it kind of, very kind of highbrow, the research thing, obviously. And as he pointed out in an interview after the fact, he said, well, I called it that because in order to attract investment, because if we'd called ourselves Shitcoin Trading Company, then no one would have invested. So yeah, he was. So this grew from this Bitcoin arbitrage trade, and it grew. By this point they were trading lots of different cryptos, not just Bitcoin, and they made a ton of money doing it. They apparently started with $200 and basically traded it up to millions, even billions. So, and
he should sell a course. That's how he should make some money now.
Well, he's going to have to get money from somewhere. He's got a big old hole to plug. So, Alameda Research. Now we'll come back to Alameda Research because this is very much central to the whole story. Anyhow, Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF, and someone in crypto is powerful when they start getting known by their initials. SBF became one of the most well-known figures in all of crypto. And I don't know if you've seen pictures of him. I don't know if you're kind of familiar with what he looks like, but he's basically
sort of. He's quite young, isn't he? 28 or 29 or something, or when he started it all.
Yeah, he was very. I think he's just turned 30, and he became. I think it may be fair to say he became the youngest billionaire ever, quite recently. And yeah, he's very sort of distinctive. He's got this huge kind of mess of sort of curly black hair. Yeah, bouffony hair. And he became famous for sort of just kind of dressing shorts and T-shirt, not noted for his dress sense, or noted for his dress sense in all the wrong way. But basically he became one of the most well-known figures in crypto, very, very well connected, not just through his parents, but also through contacts, at previous places that he'd worked in, and through MIT as well. And what this meant was that he spent increasingly a lot of time in Washington sort of talking to US regulators. And he was very much kind of front and center, if you like, of the crypto industry's efforts to kind of engage with regulators in the United States to try and kind of, yeah. Oh, it gets worse. It gets worse. So, yeah, he was I wouldn't say he was necessarily the poster child for the crypto industry, but he was certainly one of its most well-known figures. And there's no getting around that. And obviously, he attracted, a lot of people admired him very much. A lot of people disliked him intensely because, for various reasons.
A few more now, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Mikey, I've got some bad news to break to you here. I think it's fair to say that he has taken that title of the most hated person in crypto. So
that
I'm afraid
that title seems to be changing hands by the week.
Yeah. I think I can't see. Oh my word! I feel like I'm just tempting fate by saying this. I can't see it changing hands again anytime soon. But I'm fully prepared. Yeah. I'm fully prepared for that statement to come back and haunt me. Yeah, it went from Do Kwon to the founder of Terra. It sort of passed to Alex Majinsky, the founder of Celsius. It passed to the guys who were in charge of 3 Arrows Capital. It's been kind of kicked around like a football, but it has come to rest.
It's like a 100-meter relay race, basically. They're just passing that baton of hate, and hopefully this is the home stretch.
Yeah. I think SBF is the man to take that baton over the line, certainly for 2022. But hey, this is crypto, so let's not rule anything out. Anyhow, so SBF was kind of he came to be also seen by many as a kind of white knight of crypto, and this was in the wake of the Terra collapse. Now you'll remember this feels like ancient history now because so much has happened this year. But you'll recall in May this year was the last time crypto was in absolute crisis, and that was the collapse of Terra. And that saw, a lot of contagion spreading through the industry, a lot of crypto companies that were exposed to Terra and its UST stablecoin, a lot of them kind of faced going to the wall. And SBF kind of charged in a bit like a white knight and sort of to the rescue of a lot of these companies. Now we'll come back to Terra because one thing that's become clear over the last week or so is that the collapse of FTX and Alameda Research is very much as a result of Terra. These things are all interlinked.
So it's another domino effect that's happened.
Yeah, it's just this domino has fallen sort of a lot later on, and it's a lot bigger than the previous dominoes. Anyhow, so yeah, SBF kind of made himself quite popular. Obviously, also attracted a few enemies, as someone in that position would do. He was well known for donating lots of money to political causes, and I think he was the second largest donor to Biden's campaign presidential campaign back in 2020. Second largest, yeah. He donated a serious amount of money to that campaign. I think only George Soros, I think, was the largest, and SBF was in second. And I should say he has donated to Republican causes as well, but he's most well known for being a big Democrat and Biden donor. And he has a lot of ties to people who you would say move in that circle. So he's been kind of pictured on stage. There are lots of pictures of him. He at a FTX conference, which I think was last year, he was on stage talking with Bill Clinton and Tony Blair. And yeah, so he's very much, if you like, associated with kind of people on the left of politics, or certainly, towards the left of the political spectrum. And a few other things to know about him. He's a believer in something called effective altruism, which is a kind of, it's hard to describe. It's a kind of philanthropic movement that kind of aims to give money away sort of in a kind of more efficient manner. I think it's very much a data-driven philosophy.
It's kind of circumnavigating the bureaucracy of a lot of traditional charities.
Yeah, I think so. And it's sort of, but it's very much a philanthropic endeavor, obviously. And he was well known for kind of talking about it and making a big thing of it, and as many people will now say, kind of virtue signaling out of it. But he publicized that side of himself, and he was again kind of famous. FTX set up its headquarters in the Bahamas, and he was sort of known to be basically living in this kind of shared house with a lot of his buddies from MIT, from Jane Street, and from elsewhere, who helped him run FTX and Alameda. And yeah, he was famous for kind of sleeping on a beanbag in the FTX offices, and just generally being, very eccentric, very, very, well known. You couldn't miss him, basically, for all sorts of reasons. And I think it's worth just repeating this from his kind of from his Wikipedia page. This is the personal life section of his Wikipedia page, assuming it hasn't been altered and defaced by angry crypto people. Quote, Bankman-Fried is vegan. He lives in a penthouse in the Bahamas with about 10 roommates. He has a love for the video game League of Legends, and allegedly played the game while on a call attempting to secure an investment from Sequoia Capital, a big sort of VC firm. An investigation by the Financial Times characterized Bankman-Fried's win ratios in League of Legends as average to bad. Anonymous employees of FTX and Alameda reportedly told CoinDesk that Bankman-Fried was dating co-worker Caroline Ellison. Now, there's some of these bits. Some of this may sound a little inconsequential, but in light of everything that's kind of gone on, it is actually all quite important. I mean, I don't think
League of Legends win ratio is really how I need to know what the CEO's win ratio is before I invest in any company.
Absolutely. I mean, bad to what was it? Average to bad, massive red flag. I'm not investing in that. If only we'd known.
But there's also an argument saying that, well, if it's that bad, he's obviously not spending that much time doing it. So that could be a positive. I mean, it's what perspective do you look at this? If he was phenomenal at it, I don't think he would have secured that Sequoia investment.
You may be onto something there, Mike. You may be onto something.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, as usual, Mike, you can be trusted to bring a degree of objectivity to these conversations that I just don't think we could find anywhere else. So thank you, sir. Anyhow, yeah. So let's go through that. So vegan, I think. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff all over crypto Twitter at the moment that basically vegans are very much out of fashion in the crypto industry. Anyhow, but this thing of him living in a penthouse in the Bahamas now with 10 roommates. Now, there's been a lot of stuff come out about all this. These guys, as I say, he's known for a long time, and they appear to have been running the show. And I think it's becoming increasingly clear that they were there because they knew SBF, a lot of them, and were really fundamentally unqualified to be doing what they were doing. And actually, Caroline Ellison is an interesting one. Caroline Ellison was the CEO of Alameda Research. And as this Wikipedia thing says, she and SBF were known to have dated for a while. And I think basically this whole group seemed to have been kind of dating each other and, all very close. And
kind of culty.
Yeah, I think there's... Yeah, it does sound a bit culty, doesn't it?
You all live in the Bahamas in a complex all together. You all dressed in weird ways, and it doesn't end well.
Yeah, you all drink from the same tub of Kool-Aid eventually.
Yeah.
So it's this guy obviously has a very sort of a very kind of odd past, if you like. And what's becoming increasingly clear is that Alameda Research and FTX were far too close for comfort because they were different entities. Basically, FTX was an exchange that took customer deposits and was supposed to be a custodian of those deposits. Alameda Research, on the other hand, is a trading company, so it's making big old bets on the crypto market essentially. And the fact that these two companies were so close, and the fact that the CEO of one, Alameda Research, was working alongside the CEO of another, FTX, and the fact that they were obviously very, very close, even if they weren't kind of, dating at the time or whatever, that is, there's too much, there's too much information being shared there. And Alameda had...
I think it's more than just information. There's too much the funds from one company being shared with the speculators of the other.
This is exactly what happened. Yeah, and I don't think we're jumping the gun to say this. This basically is kind of what happened. And I should say as well that obviously Alameda as a trading company had this huge advantage, because if you're a trading company, if you're making bets on the market, and you can see in real time what other people are betting on, because you have, you theoretically have access to this exchange's order books. That is a huge advantage. You're able to see what the market is doing and place your bets accordingly. So
you are the bookies.
Yeah.
So your bookies. You're seeing what bets are coming in, and you can hedge your bets and sort of go, okay, cool. Well, people are betting on that. I need to take some bets on this, and it should be unfuck-upable.
Should being the operative word. Yeah. And this is one of the things, like in the kind of immediate aftermath of it. This was one of the first questions, I and others here at Coin Bureau were kind of asking ourselves. It's like these guys literally had, everything going for them. Like they had a huge advantage, and it just goes to show you, especially if you're, if you're one of these traders who makes kind of leverage bets or anything like that, like the market is just rigged against you. It's like, these big guys, they have so much, they just have information that the rest of us don't see. And I think, this is going to be something that we're going to have to talk about as an industry a lot over the coming weeks as the fallout from this continues. Anyhow, let's just cut to the spoiler, because we've already kind of talked about it a little bit. But basically, in the wake of Terra's collapse, Alameda lost a bunch of money. And SBF started plugging that hole with customer funds from FTX. And you don't need to be, you don't need to work in finance, you don't need a degree in economics or law enforcement or whatever it is to know straight off the bat that is just verboten.
That's naughty. Unless you've asked for their permission, but I'm not sure if they did.
Yeah, they certainly didn't. They certainly didn't. It's time to sort of go back just a few days now. It feels like much longer, but a few days, a couple of weeks, to how everything started to go downhill. Okay, so we know now that Alameda had lost a lot of money in Terra's collapse. It was in a lot of trouble, and Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF, was propping this company up with user funds from FTX. Now, on the 2nd of November, CoinDesk, which is a big industry website, big crypto industry website, it published an article which about a leaked Alameda Research balance sheet that it had received. And this balance sheet did not make for good reading. And basically, it revealed that Alameda had a ton of money in lots of very illiquid shitcoins. So it was a warning sign that all was not well at Alameda, and that if it suffered a liquidity crisis, if people started wanting their money back, then it was going to have a lot of problems, and obviously a lot of these shitcoins that it invested in were right down in price. And again, this is spillover from Terra and everything that happened in the wake of that. So this kind of set alarm bells ringing. Now, I want to go even further back in time because, and this is to sort of 2019 when FTX was founded, because as we know, Sam Bankman-Fried had made a lot of money. Him and Alameda Research had made a lot of money kind of trading, starting off with this arbitrage trade between the US and Japan. They built that up. They had a lot of money, and they kind of realized that the way to go, the next step, if you like, to make real money was to open an exchange. So this is what they decided to do. And one of their earliest backers was none other than Binance. Now, Binance, as everyone should know, is the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the world. It is a hugely powerful organization. The most active users, the most daily volume. It is a beast of a company. And so Binance put in a lot of money to help get FTX off the ground. And FTX it started and didn't sort of go anywhere spectacular for the first few months or so. But then kind of 2020 came along. Obviously, we had a pandemic. Everyone kind of got interested in crypto, and then we had all this kind of interest. And FTX sort of grew and grew. It kind of grew exponentially, and it did particularly well out of what was called DeFi summer. Back last year, back in 2021, when all these DeFi protocols, many of which it and Alameda were invested in, when they kind of really took off, and FTX kind of grew from this kind of new upstart exchange to become, I think it sometimes varied between it and Coinbase, but basically, the second or third largest exchange in the world, second really only to Binance. Now, Binance obviously, was kind of early investor, but I think as FTX got bigger, obviously it became more of a rival to Binance. But what sort of seems to have really kind of set the bad blood between them flowing was the fact that SBF is now known to have been basically bad-mouthing Binance and Changpeng Zhao, who's Binance's CEO, CZ. Basically bad-mouthing them behind their backs to his powerful contacts in Washington. And I think it was basically meant to kind of put regulators onto Binance and off FTX and try and basically he was lobbying regulators to try and draft favorable regulations that that would work for FTX, but would be unfavorable for Binance. And it's fair to say that Binance is not the most popular platform with regulators because it's spread. It doesn't have a global headquarters. It's spread over many different jurisdictions, and it's wildly successful. So it's natural. I think it's not all that surprising that regulators are kind of pretty suspicious of it anyway. And it's had its fair few run-ins with regulators. Although I should say, it's taken a lot of steps to jump through the necessary regulatory hoops. Anyhow. So SBF was reportedly lobbying against Binance behind the scenes, and he was also suspected of FTX and him were suspected of being behind leaks about Binance to kind of to the mainstream media, and there was kind of a string of hit pieces, this year and before, published about Binance and about CZ in general, and what was very odd was that Binance had both Binance and FTX had US subsidiaries. So Binance had Binance US, FTX had FTX US, and the head of Binance US was a chap called Brian Brooks, and he only lasted about 4 months, and then a while back kind of resigned very suddenly, and it was a bit of a big surprise to everyone. Anyhow, it later becomes clear that Brian Brooks has very, very close ties to FTX. And he apparently attended, sort of at least one, maybe even more, FTX events, sort of very shortly after leaving Binance US. Anyhow, so as you can imagine, not only are these two exchanges kind of locked in a lot of rivalry, but Binance and CZ are becoming, increasingly pissed off about the fact that FTX is lobbying against them behind the scenes.
After investing in them heavily initially.
Yeah, so there's the kind of the added kind of element of betrayal, I guess, if you like. But that's very important. We've got to remember that because this is kind of key to what happened next. The fact that Binance was a big investor in FTX. So and also I think these kind of hit pieces on Binance, they really reached a low point not that long ago when Reuters published a number of pieces that were very critical of Binance and CZ, but also kind of mentioned CZ's children as well in at least one of the articles. And, that, again, like you don't need to be a journalist, you don't need to be an expert on these things to know that you don't go after people's children.
Are they still children or are they adults working in the industry?
No, they're toddlers, I believe.
Oh, well, that's
they're
disgusting.
Children. Yeah, it's just just not right. So, as you can imagine, CZ by this point is not
Furious.
A happy man. Yeah, and who can blame him? Now, going back to the fact that Binance was an early investor in FTX, Binance. Now, FTX, once it had sort of, I think it was 2020, if I remember rightly, 2020 or 2020, no, it was 2021. FTX decided that it kind of wanted to sort of, part ways with Binance. So basically, SBF negotiated to buy back those FTX shares that Binance had invested in, that Binance owned from its initial investment back in 2019. And so in return for these shares, in return for kind of selling its stake in FTX, Binance got a mixture of BUSD, which is Binance's own stablecoin. And so it got about $1.5 billion worth of BUSD. And it got $580 million of FTT. Now, FTT is FTX's exchange token. Okay, so this is very important to remember. Basically, Binance, this rival exchange that is pissed off with the way that SBF and FTX have been behaving,
has a large chunk and has an influence on what happens at FTX. Is that not what it means?
Well, not so much an influence on what happens at FTX, but it has the ability to crash the price of FTT.
Oh.
And this is exactly what happened. So, let me just make sure that I get the dates right. Anyhow, so around about sort of early November we are by now. I think this is about the 4th or 5th of November. This speculation starts to mount that Binance is looking to sell its stake of FTT. And this is around, if you remember, around $580 million worth. And FTT is, it has, as other people had pointed out, before the fact, it didn't take an awful lot of FTT selling to crash the price. So just the rumor that Binance was looking to offload this massive amount of FTT was enough to send FTT's price heading south. Okay? Now, what was odd is that on the 6th of November, Caroline Ellison, who, as you remember, dated SBF and was CEO of Alameda Research, Caroline tweeted out directly at CZ Binance, if you're looking to minimize the market impact of your FTT sales, Alameda will happily buy it all from you today at $22. Now, this is a very weird and very stupid thing to have done because, firstly, it suggests that Alameda is is very kind of nervous about these sales of FTT and is desperate to stop. Exactly, it sets a price, and that tells the market, hang on a sec, if FTT goes below $22, we got ourselves a
an issue.
we've got ourselves a bloodbath.
Yeah.
So obviously,
or if it's at $30 at the moment and they're valuing it and they'll go, oh, we'll buy it at around this price. Well, it's like, well, it's not worth that then. That's what it's worth.
Yeah,
and it's kind
$22 is what it's worth.
Telegraphing what it should. Oh my God.
Yeah, a very, very weird thing to do. So, as you can imagine, at this point, the market started. The market, and this is like for all the kind of chaos this unleashed, for all the all the difficulties this has caused, to put it mildly, like this is a great example of the free market in action. And markets just have this ability to sniff out weakness. So this basically,
especially when it's tweeted.
yeah, when it's tweeted out, when it's there for everyone to see, it's like, hey,
I've had some tweets that I've gone back and gone, oh, I wish I hadn't said that. Do you know what I mean? Like you've said something, tried to crack a joke, or maybe make a off remark, and did that upset someone? But I've never collapsed a financial exchange with a tweet. That's got to be a bad day on Twitter for you.
I mean, there's still time for you, Mike. Maybe the next stage of your checkered career could be to one day crash an exchange. Don't cross it off the bucket list just yet. This is crypto, so literally that is not beyond the realms of possibility that you could one day find yourself in charge of a major exchange and crash it with.
Hey, I'm prepared to date or sleep with any of you CEOs. CZ, if you like, if you like some bear action, I'm your man. We're in a bear market, so it's apt. Let's do this.
Well, I never thought I'd say this, but I certainly hope CZ isn't listening or paying attention to this particular episode.
Jealous, are you?
I mean, come on.
Don't take my mochi away.
Mike, don't do this. Don't pimp yourself out to the nearest billionaire exchange owner. How could you? Okay, so obviously this, this kind of set the markets off, and there was a lot of short selling of FTT, and the price started to go down. Now, the question that was on a lot of people's minds is, why is Alameda so desperate to prop up the price of FTT? And what it basically came down to is the fact that the market kind of sniffed out that Alameda and quite possibly FTX were basically using FTT as collateral for crypto loans, for loans that they had taken out. And they were now worried that as the value of their collateral was falling, their loan positions, they would basically get liquidated and lose everything. So if you like, I mean, I think probably the best analogy here is to just look at FTX and Alameda, this whole setup, as basically being a kind of house of cards, and CZ has just sort of whipped out, or Binance has just kind of whipped out one of the cards on the bottom, and everything is looking decidedly dodgy.
Flimsy.
Yeah. Now, 7th of November is when things really started to kick off, and this is a tweet from CZ, and I don't think it's kind of overstating things to say that this may go down as one of the most sort of consequential, earth-shattering tweets in all of crypto history. Quote, this is CZ Binance tweeting on the 7th of November 2022. Liquidating our FTT is just post-exit risk management, learning from Luna. We gave support before, but we won't pretend to make love after divorce. We are not against anyone, but we won't support people who lobby against other industry players behind their backs. Onwards. So, there's a few things to unpack there. Basically, liquidating our FTT is just post-exit risk management. That is, casting doubts on, basically saying we're planning to sell this FTT. So $580 million worth of this is about to potentially hit the market. We're managing our risk, which suggests a lack of confidence in FTX. And I think the really telling phrase here is learning from Luna. So this is casting everyone's minds back to what happened with Terra, to what happened with its Luna coin and its UST stablecoin. And you remember these two were kind of closely affiliated. So I think by saying learning from Luna, as I said in a video we made about it sort of last week, I don't think that Luna thing just slipped out. I think that was obviously very, very calculated. So this obviously set everyone's minds back to May and what happened there. And just to sort of contextualize the rest of the tweet, we gave support before, but we won't pretend to make love after divorce. We're not against anyone, but we won't support people who lobby against other industry players behind their backs. This is a real kind of mic drop of a tweet. It's like, okay, you badmouth us, you say nasty things about us to regulators, you put the mainstream media onto me, you brief against me, and and results in articles that make reference to my children. You do all of those. Well, sir, it's my move now.
Yeah. It's reminiscent of Whitey Bulger. Do you remember him, the Boston sort of mafiosa? He had ties with the law enforcement and basically had carte blanche and was basically giving up other. I'm not suggesting that Binance is mafioso or anything like that, but they were in cahoots with the government or the government's law agencies. And then when the other sort of players in that market found out, it did not end well for Whitey Bulger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the comparison between with Whitey Bulger is between him and SBF really, because remember SBF was the guy with all the ties.
That's it.
CZ as well known a figure as he is, I don't think has the same sort of hasn't cultivated the same sort of connections, and he's not as the same kind of well-connected dude that well-connected American that Sam Bankman-Fried is. So.
Second largest donator to the Biden administration. That opens some doors and facilitates some conversations.
Absolutely. And this is stuff that is kind of just reverberating all around the crypto Twitter sphere at the moment. And I mean, well, we'll get to that. Let's just I just want to kind of talk through what happened with the what happened next, as it were. So CZ puts out this this tweet that. I mean, this obviously sets, and so this basically started a bank run. And again, this is what happens, and as people saw FTT's price going down, that triggers a crisis of confidence. So people started going, well, FTT, that shows that all is not well at FTX. So sensible people started going, okay, I'm going to get my money out. I'm going to withdraw my funds from FTX. Obviously, and again, like this is why I think CZ's reference to Luna is so important, because it just says like it just suggests like this could be bad, folks. We all remember what happened there. Like, don't get caught out. So basically, a bank run is what started, and people started withdrawing their funds from FTX, and it basically kind of snowballed from there, and the rumors started circulating. And this is where things get kind of really tricky. And I remember, again, it just feels like so long ago now. It's only about a week ago, but I remember seeing these rumors about FTX. Hearing this stuff on Twitter that FTX is in trouble, and you think, I mean, is this true? Like, can it be true? Like, this is a huge exchange. Like, is it possible? Like, surely not. And we were having these discussions here at Coin Bureau between colleagues, and some people were like, I think, it looks bad. And other people were like, this is FTX. This is a huge company. This is a company with its name on the Miami Heat stadium. This is a company. Its CEO has got ties to the Biden administration. Surely not. Anyhow, this bank run sort of turned into a stampede, and it became clear that FTX didn't have the funds on hand in order to meet these withdrawal obligations, and this just this got worse and worse and worse. And so the unthinkable happened. And I remember, so this takes us kind of to the 8th of November. And I think, at one point, I think it was on the Sunday afternoon, the Sunday before last, I think about $1 billion had been withdrawn from FTX. By the evening, it was sort of north of $6 billion. There was just people panic withdrawing. So this takes us up to the next sort of absolute bomb drop tweet from CZ. So this is a quote from CZ, 8th of November, his tweet. This afternoon, FTX asked for our help. There is a significant liquidity crunch. To protect users, we signed a non-binding LOI, that stands for letter of intent, intending to fully acquire FTX.com and help cover the liquidity crunch. We will be conducting a full DD, due diligence, in the coming days. And this was confirmed by SBF himself on Twitter, around the same time. Basically, this is what's happening. Binance is, our first investor has become our last. Binance is, we agreed to buy us out. And at this point, it's just absolutely pandemonium. How are you holding up through all this, Mike? Is this painful listening? Yeah,
it's a horror show, but it's kind of and we all know how it ends. So it's not like the suspense. Will something happen at the end? Well, we know. Well, we kind of know. But Binance issued a statement that they're gonna try to sort this situation out by acquiring FTX, and then did the due diligence report come back good?
It didn't go well. It didn't go well. So it's important to note that at this point, the market is in full-on panic, and all this speculation about FTX, the prices are just absolutely tanking across the board. And funnily enough, like this tweet from CZ that Binance was going to buy FTX, I mean, it was absolutely jaw-dropping. I mean, it's just like the thought that the biggest crypto exchange would be buying out the second biggest crypto exchange. It was just how unthinkable that was, even a few hours before, really. And I must say, I remember seeing that tweet come through, and I thought I was hallucinating. I was just like, what is this? What? Anyhow. So, what happened? So the market kind of recovered a little bit. Not to, it didn't bounce straight back up, but all the way back up. But certainly it was like, okay, maybe this situation can be resolved, because by now, obviously, FTX has paused withdrawals. SBF having tweeted out, and this is like another thing. There's so many little details to this story. I'm naturally going to miss a few out. SBF had done what is now kind of the classic part of the crypto platform going to zero playbook, having tweeted out, FTX is fine, assets are fine, everything's okay. This is just FUD. Don't worry. Blah blah blah.
Crypto collapse bingo. It's kind of like,
it
checked off
really
all
is.
Of these things.
Yeah, it's absolute, and it's like, again, people are sort of the thing now is like, as soon as if you like, the meme, or one of the many memes going around in crypto at the moment is like, as soon as the CEO of a crypto exchange comes out with a statement saying everything is fine, withdraw, get out of there. That is it. That is it. The house is on fire, and we might touch on that later because obviously there's been, as you might imagine, concerns over other exchanges as well. So, anyhow, the thought was, going into the next day, we were like, okay, this is bad, but this could be pretty good for Binance. Binance is going to go from not only the biggest crypto exchange in the world, but even bigger than it was before. Anyhow, Binance did, I think, the due diligence process went on for fewer than 24 hours, and they just, obviously glimpsed into the abyss when they opened the books and just went, nope. And remember, LOI, this letter of intent, that was never a concrete agreement. That was like, we will do this so long as the due diligence shows there's not like a nest of vipers just lurking in the books, which there was. Obviously they took a look at the balance sheet and just went, no way. And I think, if I remember rightly, there've been so many huge numbers sort of bandied around over the last few days or so, but I think the whole was about $8 billion worth. There was an $8 billion hole in Alameda's balance sheet. The money just gone. And then we had a couple of others. We had Justin Sun, who is the guy who founded the Tron crypto project, and he's also now the owner of the Huobi exchange. A big kind of a well-known crypto billionaire. He was sort of apparently looking into buying it, and just clearly went, no, thank you very much. So, a few days later, basically going into last weekend, FTX filed for bankruptcy. And there were lots of rumors that, apparently FTX's subsidiaries, its US subsidiary was apparently allowing withdrawals. Its subsidiaries in, I think it was Turkey and Japan, I think users there were able to withdraw kind of small amounts of crypto. But basically the game was up, and over the weekend, I think it was it Friday night? I forget now. But yeah, basically FTX filed for bankruptcy. FTX and all its subsidiaries, that is over 130 companies and entities, bankruptcy. SBF resigned as CEO to be replaced by this guy, as I said earlier, who was brought in to kind of oversee the winding down of Enron. Wonderfully apt. And basically, the crypto community was having to come to terms with the fact that I think FTX had around 1 million customers, 1 million users. So not all of them will have had huge amounts of crypto on the exchange, but unfortunately we saw a repeat of sorts of the situation that we'd seen earlier this year. People who had significant amounts of money, in some cases all their life savings tied up in FTX, are now having to come to terms with the fact that it is gone. As we've seen with bankruptcy filings from the likes of Celsius, there is a chance that they may get some of their crypto back. Bear in mind, I should say, Mikey, that that Mt. Gox, when it filed for bankruptcy about eight years ago, its creditors have still not been made whole. They are still waiting for their Bitcoin. So, yeah, it's terrible news for FTX users. It's terrible news for the whole crypto community. And I guess the hardest part of it was that it's happened again.
Yeah,
we were here just a few months ago, and it has happened again. And I should say as well, there were all these conflicting reports coming out. FTX staff, like most of them, were completely in the dark. They didn't know what was going on at the top. And it seems at this stage, again, we don't have full clarity yet over what was going on, but it seems at this stage that basically SBF and a few other people at the very top knew what was going on. They knew that Alameda had taken these huge losses. They knew that FTX customer funds had been used to plug it. They knew that Alameda, and by extension FTX were on very, very thin ice. But they kept stum, either because...
Are people going to go to jail for this?
That is a very good question. I think that kind of leads on nicely to kind of the next stage. So at the moment, I should say, SBF is apparently under supervision in the Bahamas, which doesn't sound like under arrest, but he's under supervision. Now, I should say, like authorities in the US, like the Justice Department, the SEC, the CFTC, God knows who else, the National Guard, the FBI, everyone, I think, probably has opened investigations into FTX. The Royal Bahamas Police, remember that FTX is based in the Bahamas, they're investigating. So SBF is believed to be kind of, I think, under house arrest in this huge kind of penthouse that he was sharing. And I think some of the other people sort of close to him are also under house arrest. That didn't stop him tweeting out a
Has
very
his League of
weird...
Legends account been suspended yet? Because that, I think, you got to hurt them where it matters. You got
to really hit him where it hurts. Apparently not. Apparently, I've seen good evidence on Twitter that he has been playing online whilst this whole thing has been going on. And earlier today, there was a New York Times piece. He was interviewed for the New York Times, and he sort of mentioned, he talked about playing it there as well, sort of showing very little contrition. And everyone is kind of up in arms at the New York Times about this, basically giving him a really easy ride, He didn't comment on whether he'd be going to jail or anything like this. But I mean, so as it stands, we're sort of a bit starved of information at the moment. But it appears like, the Royal Bahamas Police are keeping an eye on him. As we record this, he hasn't been arrested. You would hope that this will happen soon. I said in a video yesterday, I think the whole crypto community, just for the sake of its collective soul, collective sanity, basically needs to see some pictures of him in a prison jumpsuit. Stat. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's got to be some sort of consequences for these actions. Otherwise, it's not going to stop. Yeah. And this is I think this is a good point to lead on to. I should say, over the weekend there was all sorts of speculation. Some people were tracking what was believed to be his private jet. They thought he was fleeing to Argentina. There were also rumors that he was trying to get to Dubai. And actually, a source of mine here, a friend of mine who's sort of very kind of well connected in government here, texted me some information saying, Dubai fairly recently signed an extradition treaty with the US, which these FTX and Alameda people probably didn't realize. So the likelihood of them coming to Dubai is very, very slim. But yeah, the next stage needs to be these scumbags under arrest.
Your actions.
Repercussions.
Accountability.
They need to be made to answer for it. And yeah, we just don't know when that's going to be. Should also say another development that happened over the weekend was the FTX platform got hacked. Now this is believed. This was believed to be an inside job. And it's thought that someone high up, I think the hack was supposed to be originating in the Bahamas. And what it looks like at this stage, this still I think needs to be confirmed, it looks like this was a high up FTX employee basically trying to get money off the platform. Because remember that withdrawals were suspended. There were people on Twitter sort of trying to bribe FTX employees to take them through kind of... Yeah, well, to take them through KYC procedures in the Bahamas, because apparently withdrawals in the Bahamas were being authorized for a while, which again suggests, because I think it was mostly the top team in the Bahamas. So that suggests people like SBF and those close to him might well have been, extracting funds from the platform when regular users... Yeah, rats fleeing a sinking ship, undoubtedly. And... yeah, it's and now we're here. Apparently, Kraken, the crypto exchange Kraken, has identified the hacker, but again, their identity hasn't been sort of made public and all this sort of stuff. So we're still waiting for a lot of this to come out. But there, in a nutshell, and as I say, like I've left out a lot of details for the sake of time and just for the sake of there's only so much you can kind of recall. This has been such a fast moving story. There's been so much to take in. But there, in a nutshell, is kind of what happened. And yeah, the questions that are now waiting to be answered is, are these guys going to face justice? And I think a lot of the concern is that because SBF is so well connected, because he gave to the Biden campaign, because his parents appear to, be connected with people like Gary Gensler, who is head of the SEC. And well, let's touch on the SEC in a moment. But there are genuine fears that this guy is so well connected that he could somehow wriggle off the hook, or other FTX employees could be made to take the fall, or any of this sort of stuff. And I must say, from the tone of this interview that he gave to the New York Times, and from the fact that he's still kind of tweeting out very cryptic stuff, he tweeted out the word "what," it said number 1 "what," and that was the tweet, and then number 2 H, and then nothing, and then 3A, 4P, 5P, basically spelling out what happened. This is he clearly seems to be utterly divorced from reality, utterly kind of unaware or unwilling to acknowledge what he's done. He was making noises on Twitter, throughout this thing, even when it was filing for bankruptcy, even when it was clear that the thing was in ruins. We're seeking external funding, we're going to make customers whole, all this sort of stuff. So it appears that he has kind of become pretty divorced from reality. And the hope is that someone is going to reacquaint him with reality in the sort of, sternest way possible.
I think it's again, to reiterate the point, just if you've got any sort of crypto, buy a £50, £60 or $80 cold storage and get it on there ASAP, because that's the only way that you're not leaving your money, your life savings in the hands of a 28-year-old Buffon League of Legends playing
vegan.
Not that has anything to do with it, but
or does it? I mean, who knows?
But it's just a fact. He was a vegan, apparently. That is insane, and I think we really do need to examine what happens if what the democracy if nothing happens to this clown, if he gets off through nepotism and cronies and political donations. You really do need to have a real look at yourself and go, why is this happening? This can't carry on.
Yeah.
That's depressing.
It really is.
It's well, I also wanted to just ask, so I know it's not Binance's fault because the actions that FTX did, they had no influence over, but was it a petty sort of, because a lot of this is confidence, isn't it? And if you intentionally ruin the confidence of the markets, is that not cutting your nose off to spite your face, or is that just accelerating something that was probably inevitably going to happen?
That is a very good question, because, well, I should put it in a bit of, I'll give you a bit of extra context to it, because CZ apparently, this is something we saw again leaked on Twitter. CZ sent an internal message around to all Binance staff when this was going down, after FTX had filed for bankruptcy, saying, you shouldn't see this as a win for Binance, because this is bad for crypto. So, and a lot of people have sort of said, well, surely this is CZ's fault for precipitating this, and I don't think that's. I mean, I can see why they say that, but I don't think that's fair, because this comes down to SBF and whoever else at Alameda and FTX knew. But it's interesting to see. This is something I would very much like to, if I ever get the chance to interview CZ again, this is something I'd like to talk to him about, really, and I'd like to ask him because, yeah, in a way, what he did was expose the inherent weakness of FTX, and I guess the question of whether the market would have found that out anyway. It
draws parallels to sort of WikiLeaks, and it's journalism exposing the truth about what is happening, and it may have a detrimental effect on the government or the markets, but that is what is happening. And do people need to know that truth, or do they want to live in ignorance and sort of blue pill it, I suppose?
Yeah. Do you let something that to be rotten? Do you let that carry on? People could have carried on pouring money into FTX. This is a company that FTX was making 8 figures every single day on trading. Even I think even in a bear market, this was a fantastically rich company. It raised about $1 billion recently on I think it was a $32 billion valuation. I've seen it valued as high as $40 billion. It was a monster. And, it's name plastered all over stadiums. Tom Brady was, Tom and Brady and Giselle were 2 of its big ambassadors. Again, this is SBF was out pressing the flesh in Washington. He was well connected. He was the youngest billionaire ever. He'd said he was going to give all his money away.
Well, kind of. Came true on that one.
Yeah, not quite in the way he imagined. And this was one of the most extraordinary things. Apparently, his wealth has gone to zero, and apparently I think it's the fastest individual loss of wealth in history. Take a bow, sir.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah, 3 words: only in crypto. I think it's fair to say. So, yeah, it's a very good question, Mikey. Yeah, it's whether FTX would have collapsed anyway. Looking at seeing what we know now about the state of Alameda and the fact that FTX was plugging this hole with customer funds, I think probably it would have become perhaps
it's speeding up the process rather than being the straw that broke the camel's back. It was. It was happening. You could see it was happening anyway. It's just whether this was going to happen now or at a future fuck up or
taking the sick dog out behind the barn and doing that. Come on, boy. Let's go now. Let's go for a little walkie. Oh, there. Not you, Zola. I'm sorry. Can you quickly give me your thoughts, Mike, before we go on, how does this look to you? As we said at the beginning, someone outside looking in very much. What does this say about crypto?
Well, I was normally singing from the same hymn sheet of, well, this happens in traditional banking as well. And to a certain degree, it kind of does, we had Lehman Brothers sort of collapse from the 2007-8 financial crisis. We've got Barings Bank being brought down by one man. I think it's just crypto is there is an element of financial mismanagement and financial abuse on steroids, because it is kind of a new frontier about it. So we're getting a lot of these stories recently, and I think a lot of it is also, as we sort of alluded to in earlier in the pod, a domino effect of once one thing goes, we're also intrinsically linked, and investments from one exchange or one company get wiped out because of Luna or Terra or now FTX. It's a scary time, and not everyone is willing to be as honest and truthful as as you would hope they would be, because they're interested in saving their own skins and trying to stay above water. It's not the first time this has happened. It's not going to be the last time, unfortunately. Get your things, get your coins, your crypto onto cold storage, and sleep a little bit easier at night.
I think that is a very good note to end it on, Mike. Yeah, anyone listening, if you have any crypto on any exchange, for God's sake, don't be that person. Don't be left holding the bag. Get a hardware wallet and custody it yourself, please. If we take anything from this situation, because there's something rotten, I think, at the core of crypto. These centralized platforms, these people with too much power and too little oversight, and we've got to clean it up. It has to. There's so much work to do from here. Crypto will survive, but I think it's time crypto users took matters into their own hands and just said enough is enough. So please, folks. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. Mike, did you enjoy that?
I loved it. I love these little weekly catch-ups.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's great. Well, let's hope the viewers enjoy it too. Please do like and subscribe if you enjoyed to Coin Bureau Clips, where we put these up regularly. Mike and I record a podcast episode every Friday, most Fridays. And we also have our midweek Wednesday podcast episodes coming out too. And that's a chance for you to listen to some of the videos from our main YouTube channel. So, like, subscribe, enjoy.
Tell a friend as well.
Oh yeah, tell a friend. Tell lots of friends.
Tell lots of friends.
Tell all your friends.
Tell both your friends.